Welcome back to the Charismatic Voice. Today, I get to investigate an artist that I have been wanting to dig into for a very long time, but it is actually our Patrons' Choice Day. Luckily, these things are coinciding. So the patrons have chosen The Pretty Reckless. And specifically, we're going to be taking a look at 25, the unplugged version. I have been wanting to investigate Taylor Momsen's vocals ever since a student sang this song. It must have been at least 6 months ago, and he told me about how extraordinary she is. I have just been waiting for the right moment, and it has finally arrived. Taylor Momsen got her start as an actress in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I believe that was in 2000, and she's done quite a bit of acting ever since. But she went on record at one point as saying that acting is essentially getting to play another person, while singing is essentially getting to play herself. So it's pretty cool. I think that she also fronts a rock band, and this song was written after she'd gone through some pretty traumatic events. Essentially, she lost a couple of people close to her. Very notably, one of those people was Chris Cornell. Pretty Reckless was opening for Soundgarden the night before he took his life. So I imagine that we're going to hear a lot of the pain that really brought into Taylor's life in this song. Let's get to it.
Year one was lots of fun, but nothing lasts forever in my dreams. And two, I followed you because you knew the way, or so it seemed. And three, I still believed that we would be becoming destiny. And four, I wanted more, but you were moving on to better things.
That is a really good low range. And it's funny, her voice doesn't sound like it's super meaty down there, so I wouldn't say she's like a contralto, but you hear just so much depth and good core in that sound, in that lower range. That's very, very impressive low. I want to talk about the way they've put together this video. It was, I believe this is during the pandemic, and you have very limited resources for how you can film a music video during the pandemic. I love this fading between the piano and her. It's simple, it's effective, and the pianist is Duncan Watt, by the way. And I love that they're just kind of keeping it pretty stripped down here. I really like that because I can hear lots of extra details in her voice as well. Very, very interesting. I'm going to go back because her timbre is particularly grabbing me right now. Maybe here?
But nothing lasts.
No, I'll just go back here.
Year one was lots of fun, but nothing lasts forever in my dreams. And two, I followed you because you knew the way, or so it seemed.
I love the way she transitioned up to this very light, delicate head voice, unseamed. It feels like you have almost like an apparition of sound. Unseamed was such a good word to do that on. The full throatedness of her sound is delightful. I like the grit in it. It feels real. It feels raw. But it's so funny. I was thinking about Lizzie Hale, and like maybe is there some similarity in here to Lizzie Hale? Lizzie has a little bit more, often like a little more bite in the sound, and she has a little more throatiness in the sound, but they feel like they both have just really strong personalities that are coming through in the words, and it feels honest and gritty. Additionally, I should mention, I believe she's gone on record as saying this is essentially autobiographical. So all of these words, which are heavy and pretty dark, are true. It's kind of cool.
As you knew the way, or so it seemed. Three, I still believed that we would be becoming destiny. And four, I wanted more.
That's well.
But you were moving on to better things.
So interesting that she closes to that NG there and really lingers on it. This is kind of, again, reminding me of David Draymond. He will really close to Ns and NGs. He did that in The Sound of Silence at one point. Often that is not considered like your go-to classical technique. You want to open the vowel and stay on that vowel for longer. But I think it's fascinating to hear how much sound energy she is pouring through that NG. If you're going to have consistency in your levels, if you go to a closed consonant, a nasal consonant like that, in order to have the same amount of sound energy, you actually have to give more energy to drive it through because you're losing a little bit of that energy by it going through some things in here. If you just open your mouth up, it's going to easily carry more.
You were moving on to better things. At 25 and still alive, much longer than expected for a man. At 25, all hope has died, and the glass of my intentions turns to sand and shatters in my hand.
That is delightful. And almost like, oh goodness, she's not tearing apart her vocal folds when she goes up to that high note. And it's not even particularly high there. It just sounds like the higher note within the phrase in her voice. But when she goes up there in her full voice and she gives all of this extra rasp, all of this extra distortion, she's not ripping apart her vocal folds, even though it sounds like it a little bit, right? It sounds so gritty. It sounds like a wild animal is trying to get out. Because when she goes back to pretty singing afterwards, pretty singing, I hope I'm not implying that any sort of rasp or growl is not pretty. It is pretty in its own way, but maybe it's not pristine. So when she goes back to pristine singing, it is so clean and it sounds easy and gentle. So I don't feel like she's doing any sort of damage in the interim. Let's go back to this. This is nice.
At 25, all hope has died, and the glass of my intentions turns to sand and shatters in my hand.
Oh, lovely continuation through those consonants.
5 to 6, a lie, a kiss. The secrets that were served we'd never say. Skip to 8, we called it fate. To live to let us die another day. And 9, I saw the signs reflected in the barrel of a gun. And 10, we're here again. And those who loved me burned up in the sun.
I love her diction. I love it. She's so specific about it. I get all of the words. She even is really specific about whether or not she has a T, which is a stop T, or a T, which she sings through. So at one point, she says, skip to 8 at the beginning of this verse. And she doesn't say 8 and have a T at the end. It's 8. And she closes it off. There are many, many times in here where she's going through an N and really buzzing through that N. We got a glimpse of that before with that NG in there. But when she goes to fate, she does a T at the end, fate. It's so cool. I'm going to go back to the beginning of this verse and listen to these final consonants. They are so specific. They are very specifically placed on certain beats or held out for a certain amount of time. I wonder if this comes from that acting background where you really take a lot of focus on the various kinds of diction or enunciation that you say. I can tell that she has spent so much time in her life thinking about these things. I don't know if she does it automatically at this point or if she's thinking about it. If it's a song that she's been singing for a really long time, it's probably fairly automatic. But I wonder when she was first working on it, did she say, oh, I definitely want to make sure that 8 is a stop and that fate is going to continue that T plosive out. Let's go back to here is...
Another day,
further.
We called it fate. Served
Here we
we'd
go.
never say. Skip to 8. We called it fate. To live, to let us die another day. And
Love that head voice flip.
I saw the signs reflected in the barrel of a gun. And 10, we're here again. And those who loved me burned up in the sun. At 25 and still alive, much longer than expected for a man. At 25, our hope has died, and the glass of my intentions turns to sand, shatters in my hand, shatters in my hand.
I am loving the build that they're giving here, even with an unplugged version, right? I like the word unplugged, by the way. Instead of saying acoustic, which feels almost like it can be a little bit snooty at times, depending on which kind of circles you run in. Or it might sound like, oh, it's very calming. Unplugged is a great way to describe, like, hey, we're just not going to have as many effects on this, right? Maybe we're doing it in a microphone, but we're not going to have like tons of amplification. And we're going to use an acoustic piano here. So anyhow, I like the word unplugged. I love that this is something that is trending, and it makes me extremely happy to get to hear singers more stripped down like this. I love that within this format, they are really creating some fantastic build. At the end here, I wanted to hear her like break out into this like crazy belted extended moment, but then she brought it back and it was soft, and I was like, oh, give me more, right? It's just amazing push and pull that is managing expectations and is really, hooking us in. It's fun. Okay, let's keep going.
From 11, 12, I held the future in my grasp, and all through my teens I screamed I may not live much past 21.
I think this is so interesting. I don't know how old she was when she did How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but she's saying from 11, 12, I held the future in my grasp. And that makes me wonder if that was when that was released, because it sounds like it was like such a happy time in life. And even in the piano, we've entered into a major key here. And it's also bouncy. It's got more staccato happening. And it's also higher in the register. So he's not playing really low octaves. When it's higher, it feels lighter, it feels brighter and happier. So all of these things are essentially contributing to a feeling of more levity. And yeah, I think that just really matches the lyrics there. And I I'm really curious about which specific moment those lyrics were written for. Let's go back again. Really notice how the piano is affecting the overall tone of the piece here.
And all through my teens I screamed I may not live much past 21.
Now you have it a lot darker again. Back to minor.
21, 2, 3, 4, 21, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh my goodness, the piano actually seems like there was something that might have been slightly out of tune right there. Not sure. I want to talk about the beautiful shift that they're doing. Again, this is done during the pandemic. They didn't have a lot of resources to make an unplugged video. I love the way that they're doing frame shifts as they're going between, almost sounds like clock ticking here, which I'm guessing is exactly what they were going for. Or not just clock ticking, but almost like a bell tolling, as if you had a grandfather clock dinging. Right, really cool. I'm gonna go back right a little bit here. The frame shifts are cool.
421, 2.
And I love the blend too. It's really cool.
1, 2, 3, 4. At 25 and still alive, much longer than expected for a man. At 25, our hope has died, and the glass of my intentions, the glass of my intentions, the glass of my intentions turns to sand, shatters in my head.
Okay, we're gonna go back and listen to that again. I'm shocked by this like screech that comes in at glass each time. It's like it doesn't even really have pitch anymore. It has that much distortion in it. I feel like it's such a great way to express glass shattering. It's like the voice has shattered there. I feel like this is one of the more effective ways that I've heard harsh vocals used in a song and really interwoven. It's not an entire verse of it. You know, she's really just coming in and doing it with one word, and it's just fascinating. I love how it's interwoven. Here it is. Also, this gave me major shivers. I think that the drive here in her voice is amazing. It really does have like a certain like Lizzie Hale-ish kind of buzz and bite to it. I'd love to hear these two doing a duet. I think that'd be pretty fantastic. And I feel like the overall singing technique has to be so much in her body to not be wreaking havoc on her vocal folds at this point. This is some pretty heavy belting. She's still pretty close to the microphone, so I don't know how loud it would be in person, but that's probably good. You don't want to be like crazy, crazy loud on your belts unless you have tons of practice and endurance to get it up to that point. A lot of times people might seem louder in belts, partly because they're on a microphone. So anyhow, I'm going to come back right here.
At 25, hope has died.
That part right there. That's the part that gave me shivers before. We're going to listen to it a few times. I love the slide on died. She even uses the diphthong in that word "eyed" to really lean into it.
For a man at 25, hope has died.
Oh my goodness. There's some other artist that this is reminding me of, almost like a little Freddie Mercury in there. It's just, I love this slide.
Man at 25, and the glass of my intentions, the glass of my intentions,
Oh my goodness.
the glass of my intentions turns to sand, it shatters in my
Again, final beautiful consonant. And interesting, in D could be a voiced consonant. It could be N, right? A D in that situation could be voiced. But if you're doing something that's much quieter and you want to have a delicate touch, you can sing it as a D, hand, which is exactly what she does. She really has a beautiful D crescendo on this. I like the way she's switching into her head voice there to have this like tender sound, like a lot of loss. That shattering, it makes you have that feeling of loss. And this really, to me, this emotional attachment and messaging makes so much sense considering what she had just been through when writing this song. You feel like the shattering of life expectations when someone you know that's close to you has killed themselves. Like that must just be such an awful moment to go through, and also to have it another person close to you die in that same time period. Wow, just wow. So I really hear when she goes up into hand, instead of having this big full moment that's out here, it's like a feeling of so much loss and uh, disappointment, and you hear it just fading away, and then this T at the end that's perfectly placed on a beat. It really is a good choice instead of the voiced D. So all of these things are adding to a beautiful, beautiful ending.
in my shatters in my hand, in my hand.
I love the choice there of fading out the piano. It was a very long fade. Again, I know that she removed herself from public spotlight after Chris Cornell's passing, just to sort of change the grip on the world and deal with some things. I think that's totally respectable. And you hear that fading away in the piano. I think it's so beautiful, and it can be interpreted in tons of different ways as well. Wonderful choice for how to end this. And the innocence and sadness in those last few lines was really, really palpable. Overall, I love the emotion that she adds into this performance and into the song. It feels raw, feels real, and I love the way she's interwoven this harsh vocal line within clean singing. And yes, she does go into some distortion, but that word is completely distorted. And it's such a good use of vocal expression. I'm very curious what else she has done. I would love to hear more of her. So if you guys have suggestions, please write those in the comments down below. Additionally, if you want to join our Patreon, there is a way to suggest songs there, and this came directly from their suggestions. So you can check that out on Patreon, just the Charismatic Voice. And you can find us here every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. Arizona time. You can also find me online for courses about music in general and singing at thecharismaticvoice.com. Thank you so much for joining us here today.